Ever really thought about one of the most basic rules of life? I mean, everything from the tiniest microbe to the biggest blue whale, it's all driven by this ancient, really powerful urge to just make more of itself. But why? Okay, let's get into it and unpack this incredible story of how life makes more life.
So, here's a little puzzle for you. An organism doesn't actually need to reproduce to stay alive, right? You know, things like eating, breathing, getting rid of waste, those are absolutely essential for an individual to survive. But reproduction? That takes a massive amount of energy. So why bother with a process that doesn't really help you personally survive day to day?
And the answer is actually brilliantly simple. It's not about the individual. It's all about the species. See, reproduction is the only way to make sure a species keeps going. Without it, any form of life would just be a one-generation wonder. It would just blink out of existence as soon as the original members died off.
I mean, think about it. A single creature that can't reproduce would just live its life and poof, it's gone. But when organisms create new individuals that look and act like them, they make sure their kind sticks around, generation after generation. It's basically life's ultimate copying machine.
Okay, so how does that copying machine actually work? Well, if you want to make a copy of something, you first need a blueprint, right? For every living thing, that blueprint is tucked away deep inside the nucleus of every cell, and we call it DNA.
DNA holds all the instructions for building an organism. You can think of it like a super detailed recipe book for making proteins. And those proteins build everything, from the color of your eyes to the enzymes in your stomach. So really, when you boil it all down, the most basic event in reproduction is just making a copy of this DNA blueprint.
So how does a cell pull this off? Well, it all kicks off with making a perfect copy of its DNA. Then it has to duplicate all its internal machinery, the whole cellular apparatus. And finally, in this really incredible move, it just splits right down the middle. And boom, you have two new, very similar cells, each one with its own complete set of instructions.
So the simplest way to reproduce follows that basic plan. Just one parent making copies of itself. This is what we call asexual reproduction. And let me tell you, single-celled organisms have perfected some pretty amazing and super efficient ways to do it.
So let's take fission, for example. In single-celled organisms like this amoeba, the whole process is incredibly direct. The cell just kind of stretches out and splits into two identical daughter cells. It's probably the most straightforward kind of reproduction you can imagine. One just becomes two. Simple as that.
Then you have other organisms, like the hydra, that reproduce through budding. A little, genetically identical outgrowth, a bud, starts to form on the parent's body. Once it gets mature enough, it just pops off and starts its own life as a perfect little clone.
And then there's one of nature's true superpowers, regeneration. A flatworm, like the planaria, has this unbelievable ability. If you cut it into pieces, each and every one of those pieces can regrow into a complete new organism. It's this amazing strategy that turns what should be a total disaster into a reproductive opportunity.
Okay, so making exact copies seems fast, it seems efficient, but it's got a huge weakness. If every single individual in a population is identical, well, they all share the exact same vulnerabilities. So what happens when the environment decides to change?
Well, it turns out even the best copying machine on the planet makes a few mistakes. The process of copying DNA, it isn't 100% perfect. Tiny, random errors, or what we call mutations, can creep in, creating these subtle little differences between the parent and the offspring.
And those little mistakes, they're not a bug, they're a feature. Seriously, imagine a population of bacteria just chilling in some temperate water. If a sudden heat wave hits, all the identical bacteria might just get wiped out. But what if a few of them have a random variation that makes them a little more heat resistant? Well, they survive, they reproduce, and they pass on that successful trait. Variation is the raw material for survival.
So this really brings us to two main strategies for survival. On one hand, you've got asexual reproduction. It's fast, you only need one parent, but it generates variation really slowly. You're just relying on those random copy errors. On the other hand, sexual reproduction. It's slower, you need two parents, but boy, is it a powerhouse for creating high genetic variation.
So if life needs to speed up the whole process of creating variation, how does it do it? The answer was this totally revolutionary new strategy, sexual reproduction. Instead of just waiting around for random errors, organisms started to actively mix and match their genetic blueprints.
The real power of sexual reproduction is that it takes all the built-up variations from two different parents and shuffles them all together, kind of like a deck of genetic cards. This creates brand new combinations in every single offspring, which rapidly increases the diversity in a population and gives the species a way better chance of adapting to whatever changes come its way.
Okay, but hold on. This creates a new math problem, doesn't it? If one cell with a full set of DNA combines with another cell with a full set of DNA, wouldn't their offspring have double the amount? And then their offspring would have double that. I mean, things would get way out of control fast. So how does life solve this puzzle?
Life's solution is this incredibly elegant process called meiosis. It's a special kind of cell division that's made specifically for creating sex cells or germ cells like sperm and eggs. Instead of making a full copy of the DNA, meiosis creates cells that have only half the normal amount. That way, when a half set from one parent combines with a half set from the other, the offspring gets restored to one complete, correct set of genetic instructions. Pretty clever, right?
Now, let's bring all these big ideas home and take a look at the species we know best, us. We humans use sexual reproduction, and that whole journey really kicks off when our bodies start to mature during that period of adolescence that we call puberty.
And this development leads to two highly specialized systems. The male reproductive system is designed to do one main thing: produce and deliver the male germ cell, sperm. The female reproductive system, on the other hand, is designed not just to produce the female germ cell, the egg, but also to house and nourish the embryo as it develops.
This whole process is a truly remarkable journey. It all starts with a race, as millions of sperm travel to find a single egg. If one makes it, fertilization happens, and that creates the very first cell of a new life, a zygote. This one cell starts to divide, growing into an embryo that implants itself in the wall of the uterus. And it's here that a special organ called the placenta forms, connecting mother and child and providing all the oxygen and nutrients needed for the next 9 months.
So, for billions of years, life's one and only goal has been to copy and pass on its genetic blueprint, with variation being the absolute key to survival. But now, for the first time in the history of the planet, we have the technology to edit that blueprint ourselves. It really makes you wonder, as we start taking control of our own code, what is that going to mean for the future of our species?